Most people think wealth is just about making more money. But the truth is, rich people often follow a different set of rules that aren't openly talked about. These rules shape how they earn, spend, invest, and even think about money. You won't usually hear them discussed in school or even in most finance books because they're quiet principles, passed down through experience. If you understand them and begin to apply them, you'll notice your financial life shifting in the same direction. Let's look at the silent rules rich people follow that you don't know exist. The first silent rule is that wealth grows best when it isn't advertised. Most people are taught to show proof of progress by upgrading their lifestyle. If you get a raise, people expect a new car. If you make a big bonus, they expect a vacation. Rich people operate differently. They know the moment you turn every financial gain into a lifestyle upgrade, you've given up the chance to multiply it. That's why you'll find many wealthy individuals still living in modest neighborhoods or driving cars that don't scream success. Their money works quietly behind the scenes, not loudly in public. This doesn't mean they never enjoy luxuries. It just means they time them in a way that doesn't interfere with compounding. Another unspoken rule is that they build their lives around cash flow, not salaries. Most people depend entirely on their paycheck. If the paycheck stops, everything collapses. Rich people think about money in streams, not one source. Rental income, dividends, royalties, business profits. These create layers of security. Even if one stream dries up, the others keep flowing. The lesson here isn't that you need to own 10 properties or run multiple companies right away. It's about building slowly so you're not trapped by a single source of income. A side hustle that grows into something bigger, or even investments that pay small dividends, can start shifting your mindset from dependency to independence. There's also a quiet discipline around debt. Many people assume the rich avoid debt completely, but the truth is more nuanced. They avoid consumer debt, the kind that drains money away every month with nothing to show for it. But they don't avoid debt that can create assets. If a loan helps them acquire a property that produces income or a business that scales, they see it as a tool rather than a trap. What they never do is confuse the two. Financing a car you can't afford is a trap. Leveraging a mortgage for a rental that pays itself off is a tool. The silent rule here is simple. Debt that pays you is useful. Debt that costs you is poison. Another principle rich people follow quietly is the idea of playing the long game. Short-term thinking destroys wealth. It pushes people to chase trends, gamble in markets, and overreact to temporary ups and downs. The wealthy understand that real wealth feels boring in the moment. You invest, you wait, and you let time do the heavy lifting. You won't see them bragging about doubling their money overnight, because they know those wins are rare and unsustainable. Instead, they stick to a system. Compounding is slow in the beginning, but once it builds, it's unstoppable. The average person gives up too early. Rich people keep playing until time becomes their biggest advantage. Closely tied to this is how they manage attention. Most people think the rich are constantly chasing opportunities, but in reality, they're better at saying no than yes. They protect their focus. A dozen average opportunities are nothing compared to one that fits their vision. This silent rule of filtering allows them to concentrate their energy instead of spreading themselves thin. If you watch carefully, wealthy people don't jump into every new business trend. They move when the fit is right, not just because something looks exciting. Another quiet principle is that they protect privacy. In a world where everyone is posting highlights online, the wealthy often do the opposite. They don't broadcast their moves, not out of fear, but out of strategy. The fewer people know what you're working on or building, the less noise you face and the more control you keep. Privacy allows them to make financial decisions without pressure to impress or explain. For most people, oversharing can invite unnecessary comparisons and distractions. The rich understand that silence is a financial advantage. They also understand the difference between assets that look valuable and assets that are truly valuable. For many, a luxury item feels like a symbol of progress, but for the wealthy, true value lies in assets that produce results over time. Stocks, real estate, businesses, these don't just sit there, they generate. A car loses value the second you drive it out of the dealership, but an income-producing property gains value as long as people live in it. Their rule is simple. Own things that give back more than they take. Another often overlooked rule is the way they view risk. The average person either avoids risk altogether or jumps into it blindly. Rich people calculate. They don't gamble on outcomes they can't control, but they also don't stay frozen. They look for ways to tilt the odds in their favor. That might mean investing in what they know, partnering with people they trust, or simply diversifying enough that no single mistake destroys them. They aren't fearless, but they also aren't paralyzed by fear. The rule is that managed risk builds wealth. Unmanaged risk destroys it. The wealthy also quietly separate their identity from their money. For many people, self-worth rises and falls with income or possessions. This creates pressure to always look successful, even when things are shaky. Rich people don't need every conversation, outfit, or decision to prove their status. Their confidence isn't tied to constant display. This makes them free to make smarter financial choices without worrying about appearances. When you no longer need to prove wealth, you get to focus on keeping and growing it. Another silent rule is about patience in relationships. Wealth isn't just financial, it's also social. Rich people know that opportunities often come through people, not just markets. But instead of trying to extract quick gains from relationships, they play the long-term game of trust. They help before they need help. They connect without keeping score. This quiet investment often pays off years later in the form of partnerships, deals, or insights that money alone can't buy. A subtle but powerful rule is that they keep learning long after they've made money. Many assume the rich stop once they reach comfort, but the opposite is true. They read, they ask questions, they surround themselves with experts. The more they know, the better their decisions. This isn't about academic degrees, but about a habit of staying curious. That habit compounds just like money does. Knowledge builds on knowledge. Another principle they follow is controlling lifestyle creep. For most people, every pay raise leads to higher expenses. The wealthy treat raises differently. Instead of letting expenses rise equally with income, they let their savings and investments rise first. They might upgrade something small, but they don't let luxuries eat the entire gain. This difference sounds simple, but over 10 years, it's the gap between financial freedom and being stuck at the same level despite earning more. Finally, the wealthy understand that money is a tool, not a destination. It's not about endlessly piling up numbers, but about freedom of choice. That freedom might mean controlling your time, building something meaningful, or simply not being trapped by financial stress. Because they treat money as a tool, they don't worship it or fear it. They respect it enough to manage it wisely, but they never confuse it with happiness itself. When you put these silent rules together, you see a pattern. The wealthy live by principles that aren't flashy but powerful. They value privacy over attention, cash flow over salary, patience over shortcuts, and assets over appearances. They know that true wealth doesn't shout. It grows quietly, protected by choices most people overlook. If you start following even a few of these rules, you'll notice your relationship with money shifting. You'll spend less time trying to look successful and more time becoming truly secure. You'll feel less pressure to impress and more clarity about what actually builds long-term wealth. And while others chase noise, you'll be quietly building the kind of stability that lasts. Over time, these rules begin to compound in your life, not just financially, but also in how you think. You'll stop seeing money as something you constantly have to chase and start seeing it as a tool that works for you. Instead of getting caught up in every trend or quick win, you'll have a system that protects you no matter what's happening around you. This is the difference between people who are always stressed about money and those who seem calm even when the economy takes a hit. They're not relying on luck or timing. They've built habits and choices that put them in control. And that control doesn't show up overnight, but it grows stronger the longer you stick to the rules.